cats, it's Ed Jolly Boy Bud here. I've got a race recap for you today from the Weymouth Half Marathon 2023. What an awesome Jurassic related medal too. Let's get to it. Thanks for joining me on the channel, people. It is always appreciated. If you're yet to do so, hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications. Also, give this video a thumbs up like. You know it makes sense. I popped down to Weymouth in Dorset for some coastal punishment. Firstly, I had the small matter of doing a musical performance, so I know I was going to be stood up on my feet for like 2.5 hours or something, loading equipment in and then sort of loading it back again after the gig. It did give me the opportunity to stay in the local Royal Hotel. And it was alright, to be honest. I mean, what do you expect for 50 quid? I wanted to save myself the return trip the following day. That just would have been mentally pretty tough, and I probably just would have stayed in bed. Just gave me a little bit more time to rest and recuperate and actually kind of enjoy it as much as you can, I suppose. So complete with the Gibson SG, the Fender Vibro Champ, and an assortment of guitar pedals. Got the gig done and tried to rest as much in the hotel, though 2.5 hours on your feet is always going to be a bit of a spanner in the works. So got up on race day around about 6 AM, had some porridge and a banana, a little bit of coffee too, need some coffee. I had to get down there to grab my race bib and then figure out the start line shenanigans. The weather was pretty much ideal. It was a beautiful day. When you went outside, it just made you feel great to be alive. Nice breeze from the sea, if you like that sort of thing. Apparently it was about 13 miles an hour on the day. I think it was about 7-degree temperatures. Really nice morning views and a bit of a walk. Really kind of got me energized, and I actually felt like I might even be able to do the race. Having a walk to the sort of start line at the pavilion in Weymouth and then back again to the hotel gave me a good idea of what I should race in terms of gear. I opted for the saw cap, Nike arm sleeves, Under Armour gloves, some Nike Aeroswift tights, and the Yeovil Town Road Running Club vest, of course from the legendary Ron Hill. Mainly using the Nike tights for the extensive pockets in the back, which are easily enough space for a gel or two. Shoe-wise, went with the Nike Zoom X Vaporfly Next % 3. Needed a good race test. Oh boy, it certainly got one. So the race kicked off nice and early at 8 AM. There was no major countdown or anything to signal the start of the race. Kind of caught me a little bit off guard, I suppose. I got myself slap bang between the sub 130 and the 130 to 145 area. I didn't spot any paces or anything on the day, though most of the people that I saw at the start I also saw come the end of the race. Kicked off by the pavilion, where I did notice a very interesting poster. More on that later, Stephen C. After a quick double back around the car park at the pavilion, you then head all the way down to the end of the esplanade. Gives you a nice sea view there. Really is quite beautiful. Little time is spent there navigating around the pack somewhat. At the very end of there, you sort of double back, but on the lower section on the road. That leads to a dirt track-like area around the Sea Life Centre, and a return to the end again of that road section, and once again you're heading back towards the town. Gotta say, the first initial 6 or 7 miles of this event are really flat. Almost no elevation there enabled me to keep things quite consistent. There was a bit of a breeze from the sea around that section. I certainly could feel it. Kind of welcome then, in fairness, really, to help cool you down somewhat. But when I got back to town, I knew that I had a tougher challenge ahead of me. The section of the course has a few sharper turns and results in you heading across the harbour to some quite different areas to before. There's a few short, sharp hills in there. That really punished me, I've got to be honest. You end up by a castle-like structure there and some quite nice gardens. The course is a mere haze to me though around that sort of area. I was just trying to focus on some sort of consistent pace. One of those hills just completely destroyed me. I was trying to take in some of the surroundings as well, because some of the scenery really is beautiful when you're up on the hill. Lots of turns around some local roads and residential areas here. I was just kind of struggling to try and get my breathing back again. I've really struggled the last sort of couple of months with coughs and colds. I had a really bad sort of chest infection a while ago, and I think that's taken its toll a little bit. So up to that point where I hit some of those hills, I've managed to keep things pretty much within about 10 seconds of where I wanted to be per mile, but the hills really took their toll. And miles 8 and 9 I really slowed up, and I recorded some of the highest heart rate measurements as well across the whole race. Had to spend a bit of time recovering on those miles really to get over the hills. Fortunately, I did manage to do that on mile 10 and then got things back to where I wanted to be on miles 11 and 12. There's kind of a long incline on mile 11. It just feels like you're going up and up and up steadily. It's not like a really vicious incline, but it's certainly, you know about it. You really feel it. The last windy sections of the race there, once you're back in town, were quite challenging because I knew exactly where I was and how far I had to go. Sometimes it's better like not knowing, just coming out on a certain street and thinking, oh, there we go, I'm there now, I've done it, you know. But I knew exactly how far I had to go. It was quite nice going past all the boats, you know, wishing that one day there'd be a EDDBUD running shoe yacht there somewhere. Got back towards the pavilion, went past that 13-mile marker, and then one final sort of double back in the car park area and through the finish line. Great to see my buddy Kev Burton there. It was fantastic of him to come down and take a little bit of footage, some of which you have seen in the video up to now. So, did I feel happy after this effort? How did the shoes fare? How did I feel? Gotta be honest, the couple of days after the race, the top section of my legs have been somewhat painful, it has to be said. Really quite sore. They've eased up now. I'm like, you know, a good 48 hours later. I've managed to get out for a nice easy run today, just 5k. Really easy recovery pace. I mean, feeling somewhat fatigued before you even start a race is never great, but, you know, I got 5 hours of solid sleep, I suppose. But lugging speakers around, winding up cables, and standing around for 2.5 hours, that's just not a great build-up, really, to a race. But hey, that's my life, that's what I do, so... And I enjoyed it as well, it was a great gig. Well, I think I actually came in with quite a reasonable time, considering all of that. I have raced on fresh legs at the half-marathon distance, on much flatter courses, and not really achieved a better time, so that says a lot, I think. I think I need to get the fueling a bit more spot on. I think I started to flag a little bit around about mile 8, so perhaps I need to rethink where I'm taking some gels. I've got a really fast metabolism and I tend to need fuel. I have to take it in at quite regular intervals. I don't think I got anywhere near enough water on board as well as I was going round. I only managed to grab like 1 bottle of water at some stage, take a few sips from it, and don't think there was enough time perhaps for one of the gels I took to actually kick in, really. Though, to be honest, this is the first half marathon event that I've run since the Yeovil half in 2022. That's almost exactly like a year ago. I'm almost like a year on now from having COVID. That took some time to get over, and I of course had that weird illness back in September of last year as well. That seemed to drop my fitness back even further, but now I actually feel like I've kind of got back to where I was just before that Yeovil half, 12 months ago. So came in with a time of 1 hour 32:56. So that's a good like 1 minute and 10 seconds off my personal best at that half marathon distance that I achieved back in 2021 at the Bristol half. But I mean, a lot of stuff has happened since then, so to get back somewhere near there is really, really good. Faster than the Yeovil half last year, that was 1 hour 33:35. So maybe I shouldn't beat myself up too much about it all. I was well rested just before that Yeovil half event as well. I guess another good comparison to make is September 2021 when I did the Salisbury half, 1 hour 32:27. That was on fresh legs with lots of sleep again, so it was a commendable effort really, considering what I'd had to put up with during the week as well. It was a really testing week for my family too. Well, I'm not going to go into that though. We're going to stick to the shoes. So using this one was a bit of a gamble, but if you never test something out, you never know if it's going to work. Was it cushioned? Yeah, pretty good. Was it stable? Yeah. Did it have that race fit and feel? Well, no, it didn't really for me. I do wonder if I'd go on like a half size down, maybe it would be slightly better, but it's more this sort of structureless upper. It just does nothing for me at all. Just feels a little bit like the Streak Fly did when I picked that up. It's just a little bit underwhelming. It's kind of like an amplified version of the Streak Fly in many ways, really. I mean, it looks the part. I think it looks incredible, but performance-wise, I really don't feel that it's offering anything more than the Vaporfly Next Percent version 1 or 2 already offer you. I didn't see anybody else wearing these shoes at all. There's a sea of Vaporflies, loads of Alpha Flies too. Quite a lot of the Adios Pro as well. I saw loads of the Adios Pro 2. Grip was on point. Lacing, despite not really being my preference, it's okay. The upper just feels a bit of a downgrade to me from the Vaporfly Next Percent 2. So, knocking off 30 seconds from the last half is really great considering I faced a number of setbacks. Good to see I fought back from that really and tried to get the fitness back to where it was, and I think I'm almost there now. Just in time for Brighton, I guess. Shout out to the race organisers. Very well organised event, I have to say. I kind of like the fact it kicks off a little bit earlier as well. You feel like you've got more of the day left ahead of you once you've finished. Fantastic medal as well with a huge dinosaur. I mean, what more do you want? Last area of discussion is the GPS recording there. It did come in at about 13.01 miles. Now, this is a properly measured course as far as I'm aware. Clearly the correct distance, and lots of people seem to almost expect it to be a bit short. Now, what could be the issue there? We're missing about 150 meters or something, I suppose. I think I'll put this down to the route itself. It is considerably tree-lined at certain sections. There's lots of double backs, lots of very fast turns. There's even a couple of tunnels as well that you've got to contend with, so maybe that's had a bit of an effect on the GPS reading here. You know, there's no painted race line to follow or anything like that. You just race it with all the other people. The course though was really well signposted, I have to say. There wasn't a moment where I ever thought, where on earth are we going now? It was always clear, loads and loads of signs up. I did the race just like everybody else, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a half marathon. In the pre-GPS days, you know, prior to Strava, people would have just run it, maybe stopped their stopwatch or took note of the time or something. That's what I'm going to do here, okay? So have you run the Weymouth half marathon before? Did you run it this year? Let me know your forthcoming races too, down in the comments. Musical interlude time for you. I've been listening to the fantastic Scott 2 from Scott Walker. This has one of my favourite tracks on it that Scott Walker produced, which is Plastic Palace, people. Almost feels like you're sort of opening up a children's storybook when you hear this song. These really interesting sort of string arrangements, these flourishes. The words are bizarre, almost fantasy-like. There's some kid, you know, who's taken hold of a balloon and he's started to sort of float into the sky. Then everything starts taking a sinister turn, as it often does in Scott Walker tracks. There's some weird, like, vocal effects applied to Scott's baritone. Feels like you're almost like underwater, you're like floating in space, and then you get returned back to this sort of fantasy-like motif again. Really is fantastic stuff. I do recommend you check out some Scott Walker material. Perhaps if you're a fan of some of the more recent Arctic Monkey stuff, or the last Shadow Puppets albums as well. If you like that type of material, you're gonna love Scott Walker. Go and check this one out, Scott 2 by Scott Walker. Thanks for tuning in, people. You know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, click the bell below for notifications. If you haven't done so yet, give us a super thanks as well. It really helps out and keeps the shoes rolling in. Give this video a thumbs up like. My name's EDDBUD, and I'll be seeing you. Even see, I'm not entirely sure I can resist this one. I mean, look who we got there. We got Tony Angelino, Alan Perkins as well. I do the 1, 2, 3, 4s. And the legends as well, look at that. I'm gonna have to go to this. This looks like something that I would enjoy.